have very good memories to the first contact I had with homeopathy. My father was a homeopathic veterinarian and worked all his life exclusively with homeopathy. And so, as far as I remember, my very first contact with homeopathy was literally in a cow barn. I was standing between cows and handing out to my father bottles with pulsatilla, nux vomica, and sulfur. I accompanied my father very often in his practice and got in touch with homeopathy from the very earlier years. I grew up with homeopathy and was almost always treated with homeopathy when being sick as a child. This was problematic at the beginning only for my mother, who couldn't understand that the same medicines helping cows and pigs also were helping her children. But only at the beginning. Later on, she was a hero in defending her children from allopathic influences. It was fascinating to see how my father treated large and small animals, from elephants down to mice, exclusively homeopathically with homeopathic medicine. And for a long time, talking about medicine, that meant for me only homeopathy. I didn't know any other medicine. I went with my father to homeopathic seminars and congresses where he learned from human homeopathic doctors and transferred later on this knowledge to the veterinarian use he needed in his practice. And this way I could get in touch very early, already before studying medicine, with important teachers like Künzli, Vögeli, Dorji, and many others. I started studying medicine in Hamburg, but after 2 years, I moved to Mexico to finish my medical studies. And at the same time, I studied at the school of Dr. Ortega, Homeopatía de Mexico. At that time, the most important experience in my training as homeopath, since this school offered a very comprehensive, complete, and deep training. Through Dr. Ortega, I was fortunate to meet other important teachers such as Pablo Pasquero, Antonio Negro, Eugenia Candegabe, and very important and essential Indian colleagues and their way of working. After 7 years living in Mexico, I returned to Germany and started to work independently in my own office in Freiburg, southern Germany. Very soon, I took over the homeopathic training courses for homeopathic of medical doctors and pharmacists, also at the Freiburg University. The first LMHI Congress I visited was 78 in Hamburg. At 1985, I took over the national vice presidency in Germany and went as national vice president for many, many years to Liga congresses. Afterwards, I was 6 years general secretary, and afterwards, as usual, 3 years prime vice president, and from 2007 and 2010, I was president of the LMHI. During these 3 years of being president of the Liga, and this is the headline of my presidency, it was possible to create the frame and the structures for a modern and big homeopathic medical world organization. To start with, we could open a LMHI office in Berlin, Germany, and this was working very successfully in the areas of the Liga membership administration, the management of the LMHI website, and the publishing of the new electronic newsletter. Related to this office was also the work of the pressman we shared with the German Association of Homeopathic Doctors at that time, who helped preparing press releases and distributed them to international agency whenever needed. An important cornerstone was also the new LMHI website, which was one of the biggest working projects in those years, which had been successfully installed and had very soon proven to be the most important tool we have concerning the communication in the homeopathic medical world. Besides our Liga letter, we introduced an electronic LMHI newsletter, which was very soon the perfect tool for a fast and efficient spread of important information around the world. Of course, we had then to fill these structures with life. And it depended not only of the president of the LMHI, but also of the members of the executive committee, as well as of the national vice presidents, which had to stay in close contacts with the LMHI and with their member countries. The contact with our members, also finding new members and member countries, was always with an aim and the purpose to fulfill the main aims of the LMHI, which are the development and securing of homeopathy worldwide, and the creation of a link between homeopaths with medical diplomas and between societies and persons who are interested in homeopathy. During these years, as president, I was, of course, involved in almost all working areas of the executive committee. And I want to draw out of them only two special aspects. In my function as LMHI president, I visited in the years between 2007 and 10, 23 of our member countries. This is almost a third of all the Liga member countries, and it was one of the two most important experiences I had in these years. Being close to our members, attending national meetings or conferences, providing support, respectively in political and in legal challenges to homeopathy in those countries where the Liga's aid has been solicited by the national homeopathic associations, all that showed me where the real needs exist. In Slovenia, Peru, Ecuador, and Nepal, for example, I recognized up to which extent educational help is necessary, where political help is needed, and where just a few lectures were welcome and helpful to stay in contact with the Liga. This shows how effective Liga work can be and how important it is to promote the Liga and homeopathy to our member countries. For that, we have to attend national meetings of our member countries and should be in contact with health authorities, presenting and promoting LMHI purposes and projects, as well as lecturing where needed. Of course, this cannot be only the job of the president of the Liga. According to the location of the country located in the world, every member of the executive committee or a national vice president can represent the Liga. In doing that, nobody ever should ask again why he or she should pay an LMHI membership fee. It should be much more an honor and an obligation to belong to the Liga, because the Liga has the possibilities to offer help and support and protection in different areas like politics, research, education, drug provings, etc. And because this relationship is of mutual interest, it cannot be just a question, what can the Liga do for me, but also what can I do for the Liga? And many of us remember Jacques Imberechts. Unfortunately, he died a few years ago, who always reminded us that we have to feed the cow we are milking. The second invaluable experience was the collaboration with the European Committee of Homeopathy. As president, I was responsible for a permanent exchange of information with the ECH in the coordination of common and overlapping projects between LMHI and ECH. A relationship which proved to be very productive for the international homeopathy, also very helpful. For example, together, ECH and LMHI, we produced press releases to defend homeopathy. Or the person, Michel Wassenhofen, one of the most important researchers working for ECH and LMHI, was able to join the best researchers in the homeopathic world for the benefit of ECH and Liga. As the members of specialists and researchers are limited in the area of homeopathy, it was and is very important to need to share experts' experiences, bringing together the power of all of our members when needed, not only to reduce costs, but also to join energies, mental power, practical experiences, specialists in the areas of research, drug provings, and education to strengthen medical homeopathy worldwide and to guarantee the highest impact of our concerns when we have to express them. And only this way we will be able to ensure that the best qualified colleagues or homeopathic researchers are included in the tasks we have to put in practice. In summary, we can say the future of homeopathy depends on the development of its inner and outer world. On the outside, it requires always a strong political network between all countries where homeopathy is practiced, as well as between all homeopathic national associations to defend homeopathy, to reject attacks against homeopathy, as well as to promote homeopathy continuously. This can be realized applying our LMHI curriculum, promoting the accreditation of homeopathic medical teaching centers by using our communication systems. On the inside, it requires the optimizing of the homeopathic education worldwide and research projects carried out by experienced and well-connected researchers in homeopathy. I want to remind all of us also that our working for the international homeopathy, we never should forget where we come from and where our fundaments are built on, and that homeopathy we aim to practice is defined, and I quote from our membership brochure, as a medical system being defined by the application of the principles, the principle of similars being the leading one, and procedures as described by its founder, Samuel Hahnemann, in his Organon of the Medical Art, 6th edition. Wherever I showed up as president, presented the Liga, represented our interests, our possibilities, or giving a lecture, I reminded all the people present where we come from, and that the homeopathy we represent and we practice should be founded on the principles of homeopathy as shown by Hahnemann. From all the projects which have been realized during my presidency, I was just pick up the area of education, because it was in 2007 when the WHO, the World Health Organization, confronted us with a core curriculum for homeopathic education. But this curriculum they presented us did not meet at all our realities and our needs. And that was the point where the European Committee for Homeopathy and the Liga started working out a very complete and special curriculum, which has been offered to all our member countries and which has been applied in the last 10 years all around the world. This included also a Lmhi diploma to those colleagues who fulfilled the requirements, and was very successfully applied. Other working areas or projects which have been realized successfully at those years of my presidency were also the membership brochure in its latest edition, guidelines and rules for the organization of Liga congresses, a position paper on the H1N1 flu, important at that time, a proposal for a definition of the homeopathic remedy, several press releases defending homeopathy. It was the time of the Lancet publication against homeopathy. And under the supervision of Michel von Wassenhofen, and as the result of the Lmhi congresses, the research publication in homeopathy and evidence-based homeopathy has been published. Also, and that was very interesting, very successful, we started a yearly or every 2-year practiced International Homeopathy Day in different countries. The first International Homeopathy Day was in Ljubljana, Slovenia in April 2010, and has been such a great success that we continue this Homeopathy Day up to today. Some things have changed in between already. Everything is developing, but some aspects are still existing. And I'm really proud about, for example, the curriculum we developed at that time, because this is a real cornerstone we have. One important cornerstone of the Liga is the national vice president, the representative of each country in the Liga, and the link between the association and the member country. And how important this person is, I can show in one example, which I realized in one of my most important trips to India, Thailand, and Nepal. It was a special motivation for me to go to India, because India has one of the most important, greatest potential, the biggest number of homeopathic medical doctors worldwide. And for many years, we can say almost decades, India was not present in our meetings, in our congresses, maybe just a few speakers here and there. And when I was at the Lucknow Congress in 2008, many members from HOMAI and other important national associations have been present. And I was shocked that many of the people present and homeopathic doctors in India didn't know anything about the Liga. or maybe they did know, they knew that Liga exists, but they had no idea how and when they could participate or being member. It was new to them, the membership fee, that they can be members, and what the Liga could offer to them. And it was a very important turning point, because from that moment on, we could reinstall a very close link between India and the Liga. And the problem existed because the national vice president from those years was not existing as a link between India and the Liga. So from that point on, the national vice president was working very good, and we have a very special relationship now. From the very beginning, homeopathy had an international character. Many of the first students of Samuel Hahnemann, the founder of homeopathy, emigrated from Germany and took homeopathy all over the world. This way, homeopathy was spread over Europe, North and South America, Asia, Africa, practically to all continents. And also the first major meeting in the history of homeopathy, on the occasion of Hahnemann's 50th doctoral anniversary in August 1829, had an international character, because not only homeopaths from Germany, but from various European countries met in Köthen, celebrating Hahnemann, but also discussing homeopathic topics. Further, we know that most of the significant homeopaths and homeopathic physicians in the earlier years of homeopathy were in regular exchange by letter between all continents. So it was only a logical consequence that in the 1920s, the call for an international organization of homeopathic physicians became louder and louder, and in 1925, the Liga was founded in Rotterdam. My most important teacher in homeopathy, Dr. Sanchez Ortega, told me once, literally, the older we get, the longer we work, the more complex, difficult, and burdened with more serious diseases the patients find themselves with us. This has also been my experience over the last 40 years. Like many other homeopathic physicians, I have treated acute and chronic diseases, worked as a family physician and as a homeopathic specialist. And with the years of experience, my possibilities to cope with complex and dramatic situations with homeopathy increased. But of course, I am very grateful that I was confronted with certain acute and problematic chronic cases only in the last years, having much more experience. For example, some years ago, I experienced the development of an acute cerebral hemorrhage in the practice when the patient was sitting in front of me with a complete loss of speech paralysis, and a hemiplegia. With arnica and Lachesis 200, the symptoms improved significantly in between 30 minutes. When the patient arrived at the hospital, the clinic, she was almost free of symptoms. Although signs of severe cerebral hemorrhage could be seen in the computer tomogram. Of course, this cannot be done by a beginner in homeopathy, but shows what we can do and offer with homeopathy, having a little bit more experience. The most important help I had from the very first steps as homeopathic physicians up to today in my daily practice was the paragraph 3 of the Organon from Samuel Hahnemann. In this paragraph, Hahnemann summarizes the essential principles, not only from homeopathy in general, but also everything we need for our daily practice. The understanding of the individuality of the patient, his personal problem, his conflict, the individual symptoms, as well as the individuality of the prescribed remedy. The principle of similarity, the drug proving in homeopathy, the correct doses and potentization, as well as the removal of obstacles to healing. As long as we are able to apply those principles, we will never fail. Basically, start with the fundamentals of homeopathy. They should not be deterred from taking the rocky and hard road. It is often a temptation to follow one of the modern developments of homeopathy, to make a quick prescription without much effort, much thinking or studying or analyzing. And with a little bit of luck, this can lead to success in individual cases now and then. In the long run, however, a homeopathic doctor trained in this way will never develop further. He will stay at one level and all his work will be limited. He never will be a really good and successful homeopathic doctor. I recommend that every student of homeopathy should look for a good school or an excellent, experienced teacher to get a solid education. And such an education is always fundamented and based on Hahnemann, on Boenninghausen, on the knowledge of the old masters of homeopathy. And such an education should at least last 3 years. Only with a good education, a student will develop further the necessary criterion to judge later on modern developments in homeopathy. The way must never be the other way around. As said before, a solid clinical training will always give more certainty to recognize exactly if a certain pathology can be treated exclusively by homeopathy, or only partially or just palliatively, or if, for example, a surgical therapy is needed. Yeah, this situation exists in many countries, and we can't get around it. They are legalized here in Germany. Some of them are unfortunately here working much better than homeopathic medical doctors because they stick very close to Hahnemann's principles. Others are housewives, not very well trained and prescribing nonsense. We have to go our way. If we are united as homeopathic medical doctors under the roof of the Liga, we are strong enough to protect our interests. It is nonsense and a loss of energies to fight against the practitioners. They exist as we exist. I see it very well organized. Of course, I could visit just a few centers of education or homeopathic training, but we know that they are very well organized and they have very good quality and can be an example for many countries around the world. That's the reason why it is so important that the Indian experience with homeopathy, the research you do in India for homeopathy, is available for the homeopathic world. And there, the Liga can be a very good platform to exchange this knowledge. First of all, we are glad that the books are where they are in the House of Hahnemann. They are well organized, they are categorized, and they are ready to be used. There are a few points to clear up before it could be open to the homeopathic community. There is, of course, the question of security, because somebody has to be there when we open the doors to these books to make sure that they don't disappear. And we are working on that. And we are working to have there at least a part-time librarian who is able to work a few hours during the week there to open the doors for homeopathic researchers and to coordinate projects. Of course, we need a librarian who has maybe, ideally, homeopathic experiences, but as we can't make sure that, we look for a homeopathic physician speaking German, English, who is able to go there also certain weeks to coordinate research papers, or let's say papers for the doctorate or for a professorship. So we're looking for manpower. It looks like we have the money we need to do that. The most important obstacle at this moment is to find the right persons to do that. Yeah, this is the state of affairs, and I'm sure we can give many more information during the next Liga. Thanks to Henning Gipser, 15, 20 years ago, I discovered Böenninghausen and his method, and it was a very special enrichment for my work. Since then, I was able to work much more correct, in more detail and more successful, because whenever we find a complete symptom with localization, sensation, modalities, concomitants, or maybe a good etiology, this therapeutic pocketbook is a good help and makes and gives us very good results in the practice. Böenninghausen, we can't resolve every case with Böenninghausen, of course. We have to apply to Kent repertory in certain cases, and to Böenninghausen in others, and maybe looking in special materia medicae in other cases. But in difference to Kent, who goes from the general to the detail, yeah, Böenninghausen tries to generalize wherever he can. That means if you have a patient with a modality in different areas, like bryonia with his stitching pains, and you have a patient who tells you, I have stitching headaches, stitching stomach pains, and stitching pains in my articulations, this is something which can be generalized and which is a genius symptom for a patient. And when you find a correspondence in the pocketbook, a symptom where you see a medicine which represents in the same intensity as a genius symptoms, this symptom, as for example bryonia, you can with high security prescribe successfully bryonia. So not every case can be resolved with that, but it is very helpful because Böenninghausen proved all his experience clinically. And the rubrics and the symptoms and the medicines got higher grades whenever they have been clinically verified. And of course, this is the special point in all that. If you know that bryonia 1,000 times has been proven being successful in stitching pains, you just prescribe it and you know already in advance that you will heal the patient.